So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm Laura Stone. I work with David, and I am so delighted to be a part of this conversation with the fantastic Stormy Andrews and David Tyreman. Stormy Andrews is a podcasting guru. He's also the founder of Local Yokel Internet Marketing. He's basically kind of one of the guys, and I'm going to turn it over to him to introduce the other, the guy, when it comes to branding and marketing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Laura. So yeah, I'm Stormy. I'm the founder of Yokel Local, but it's an honor for me to be sitting in, on this podcast with David Tyreman. Many people consider me being to be a guru when it comes to marketing, and really not me, but it's my team. But when it comes to branding, whenever we can partner or have our clients start off their branding messaging with someone like David, you want to talk about results going to a whole nother level? Well, that's exactly what happens. So I'm honored to be here. I've learned a ton of information about David, and to kind of give you a little bit about his background, because I always tell people, why should you listen to him? And guess what? I'm a fan. I've got a copy of his book, and it's a great book. So I may be getting off the topic, David, and if I am, so what? Too bad. I'm going to tell them about your book anyway. So this book here is called World Famous. So if you have a brand that you want to be world famous, this is absolutely the book to read. It's probably one of the best business books out there. So who's David Tyreman? David is the guy that has done the branding for brands like Polo, Ralph Lauren, North Face. He's worked with Nike, Disney, all these iconic brands that you're familiar with. This is the guy. So I'm excited. Whenever I sit down with David, I learn a ton. I grab my notepad so this way I can write notes, because just a wealth of information, and I'm excited to be here with you, David. And let's take it away. David Tyreman.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Laura, for being here. Thank you for setting everything up with me. You're awesome. And Stormy, thank you so much. I'm in Stormy's studio right now. It's state of the art, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. Also, thank you for tuning in today, because I've got a couple of really important things to share with you. As you know, the name of this webinar is How to Create a Kick-Ass Brand. So I'm going to be running you through some of the steps that 98% of businesses really do not know, including the big companies that I work with, just do not know how to truly create that emotional connection with the very customers they most want. So I'm going to be letting you know how 18 lucky entrepreneurs can work with me early next year to create your own kick-ass brand, as well as guiding you through some steps that are literally vital, whether or not you work with me or not. So even though Stormy was so kind as to tell you a few things about what I've accomplished, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how I kind of got here, because what we've all learned is no one gets born knowing how to create a brand, certainly not a kick-ass one. So I arrived in the United States from England a few decades ago with a suitcase, and I had a big idea. I thought I would follow in my father's footsteps into real estate, and as soon as I started working in real estate, I realized it was not for me, and I was very unhappy. I'd been collecting a few vintagey things with my spare money back in those days, came on vacation to the States and thought, well, you know what, I want an adventure. So my friend agreed to join me, and we came over here thinking that we would do the same as Tupperware, but with antiques. So our big idea was antique parties in people's homes. Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. We went broke really quick. And the thing is, having come from a foreign country, I really was not going to go home a failure. So I had to find a way of making my business work. And it's a long story how we found our way, but we literally ended up walking around a big shopping mall, South Coast Plaza in Southern California, and realized that the very things we had in our garage that we did not know how to sell in those Tupperware parties were the items that stores like Polo, Ralph Lauren, Nike, Tommy Hilfiger, Nordstrom, Macy's, big department stores, retailers used to differentiate the spaces in their stores. So long story short, we ended up, once we started building our own brand, we ended up picking up Polo as a client. Now, if you've ever been to a Polo store like this one in the image, you'll notice the racing skull, the motorbikes, the suitcases and trunks, all sorts of props and displays that the retailers and department stores use in order to tell a brand story. So it's called visual branding. My company ended up supplying every Ralph Lauren store on the planet. Polo North America, Polo Japan, Polo Europe. We ended up doing every single Nike store, every Tommy Hilfiger, Macy's, and including Chevy's restaurants, Land Rover, quite a few Citibanks. So we worked with a whole range of retailers to tell a brand story so that they could differentiate from their competition and attract the customers that they were trying to talk to. So that's how I got going. We ended up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, CNN, thousands of newspapers, magazines, blogs, you name it. We really just hit a nerve. And a lot of the times the media, they didn't want to write about us just for being successful. That the stories we got were about the wacky, crazy branding that we did in order to get ourselves out of obscurity and into the spotlight. And so that's exactly what I'm going to be sharing with you today. Some of the steps we took to move from being a company that literally started from a suitcase and became the go-to company in our industry. So when I talk about world famous, and my company is called a world famous company, when I talk about world famous brands, some of the brands I've worked with are truly world famous, they're household names. Others you won't have heard of, but they're world famous in their market. And my goal for you is that your brand becomes world famous in your market, whatever that market is. So let's have a little bit of fun first. And so I'm going to start with Laura and Stormy. And everybody who's tuned in, please just put in the notes at the side of the screen. Laura, whereabouts do they find where they can?
In the chat, click the little chat button, and then you can chat along.
Great. So please just share where you're at in the world, and I want you to share go back to when you were like 5 or 6 years old. What was that brand you just had to have that you begged your parents for, you begged your grandparents for, or you even saved up your allowance to buy it yourself? I'm going to start with you, Laura. What was yours?
As a child? Well, it's got to be Barbie.
Barbie.
I mean, it's got to be.
That was actually one of my favorites, but my sister didn't let me playing with her Barbies. So, Stormy, thank you for showing that. What was yours, Stormy?
Mine was, I saw Star Wars at the Mann's Chinese Theater. And that's, you couldn't ask to see Star Wars any other place. And then it turned into Star Wars action figures and anything to do with Star Wars. Yeah, that was me.
Awesome. Awesome. And has anybody shared anything, Laura, about their thing?
Darren immediately came out with Nike.
Nike?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to write on the... I'm sorry?
Big Wheel. I like it, Tammy. That's a good
one. Great. So I'll share mine, and it's right on the screen, and it's a brand you probably have never heard of unless you've been to Great Britain. It's a relish. They have a slogan, and you sing it, and it goes, "Bring out the Branston," and you bring out the Branston, and you have it with sandwiches, you have it with salads, you have it with cheese, you have it with savory pies. You can have it with pretty much anything. And we loved Branston growing up, and we would literally sit at the dinner table and sing to our mom, "Bring out the Branston," and she would bring out the Branston. And one day we sang it, and she's like, "Oh, we're out of Branston." And so we're like, "No, how are we going to have dinner without Branston?" And so we could never have dinner till Dad got home anyway. So she calls Dad and says, "Bring home some Branston on the way back from the office." So he said he would, and then he forgot. So as he pulls toward the end of the road, he realized he'd forgotten, pulls into the corner store, and they were out of Branston. So he bought, and just wait for it, it's a horrible word, he bought the generic brand. And I remember this paper bag being delivered to the middle of the dining table, and I grab it and put my hand in, and I'm like, "What's this? It was wrong." And I'm still talking about it today, when I was a kid. So the point of me sharing this story is I'm just talking about relish. Sometimes we go to certain supermarkets and they have whole aisles of just relish. Yet I knew, even as a child, the one I had to have. Stormy, you knew out of all the movies, it has to be Star Wars. Laura, you knew it had to be Barbie out of all the toys you could have had. And whatever brands you thought of out there, or wrote down, or shared, out of an ocean of choices, you knew there was that one. Like, as an adult now, whenever I fly back to England, I'm flying Virgin Atlantic. There's only one choice for me, even though I know there's lots of carriers that could take me. I'm committed. I love Virgin Atlantic. So the point of me sharing this before we even get started, having just a bit of fun thinking about the brands that you've loved, is that we've all known since childhood that despite a notion of choices, it's possible to be that one. So by default, we can be that one. So I want you to have that in mind, that you might feel you're in obscurity. You might feel that you're not getting the attention you deserve right now, but that is hopefully temporary. I'm going to show you some steps that can literally help your business create a kick-ass brand and move into the spotlight. So shall we get started? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. So before we get started, I'm hoping you've got a notepad, a piece of paper, or if you're really techie, type away. But the first thing I want you to write down, because this is absolute truth, is that there are masses of people just waiting to do business with you once they are so inspired. Key word is inspired. Most of the time in business, we are boring people. We're zoning them out. We are not inspiring them. So we must understand how to inspire our customers. Next, I want you to write this one down. Without a brand, you or your business are simply a vendor. And vending is for machines. If there was a vending machine down the corridor from where you're sitting, and if there was another vending machine identical to that across town, which one would you go to? It's obvious you would go to the one that's closest because there's nothing pulling you anywhere else. So we cannot afford to be vendors. If potential clients refer to me as a vendor, I stop them, say, stop. I'm not a vendor. I'm a brand. Let me explain what makes me different, what makes me more unique, and what makes me more valuable to you than the rest. So first step, if any, in your business, in your travels, in conversations, when companies, they're not trying to be rude to you, but if you get referred to as a vendor, I want you to really have the courage to say, stop, I'm not a vendor, I'm a brand, and explain why. And currently, right this minute, you might not be able to explain why, but maybe by the end of this webinar, you'll have some cues and clues about truly what does make you different, more unique, and more valuable than everybody else. So it begs the question, what is a brand? I've asked this question many, many times, and I get lots of answers that tend to lead in the right direction. But let's start with your customers, with consumers, people who are not in business. They are simply consumers. To consumers, a brand is simply, the word brand literally for them means type of something. So people will say, like, what brand of detergent do you use? What brand of TV did you buy? What brand of car do you drive? So people use the word brand typically to mean what type of something. But for those of us in business, for those of us who want to build a brand, for those of us who want to stand apart from everybody else who does what we do and get chosen, we have to look at branding completely differently. So what we must know first going in is, as far as we are concerned as business owners, or if you're building a personal brand for yourself, if you're a professional, independent professional, or if you're in sales or marketing, which is all of this information is good for the whole group who do those things, we have to make sure we are consistently able to communicate what makes us most unique and valuable to our chosen audience, the very people we really choose that we would most like to do business with. So let me explain that just a little bit further. What you're looking at now is what I call a brand action wheel. And I'm going to use this image to help with a vital distinction. And that distinction is the distinction between branding and brand DNA. We're going to start with branding because nearly all of us touch branding every single day of our lives. Branding is the logo on the back of my iPhone. Branding is the label on this Nestle water that I'm drinking. Branding also, and there's no harm in a little plug of my own, branding is the cover of this amazing book that that Stormy read on a plane recently. So branding, if you walk into the supermarket, the store is filled with probably 30,000 different brands. And the branding is the labels. And then you buy your groceries, they put them in a shopping bag with this supermarket's brand on there. So there are just unlimited ways that companies can brand. Sometimes you look up in the sky and there's planes leaving vapor trails with a message telling you to go to a certain website or go to a certain restaurant or whatever. So there's many, many, many different forms of branding. So what we'll agree here is that branding is designed as an effort to get the attention of the customers we want to attract. That's what branding is. And I'm showing you this brand action wheel for an important reason. You might want to draw a diagram of this on your notepad. It looks like a sort of an old cartwheel from the Wild West. So I want you to imagine that wheel, everything inside the red circle is your business. And everything outside of that circle is the world where your customers are at, friends of customers, colleagues who might recommend you to their friends as customers. So in this wheel, we'll notice that represents your business. All of these cartwheels have spokes. Each of these spokes represents a form of branding that your business takes advantage of. So a lot of our businesses have similar brand spokes, and where they actually pass through the wheel and touch the world, it becomes a brand touch point. And you'll have maybe heard of brand touch points before. So most of us have websites. Most of us have voicemail. As a speaker, webinars are one of my brand touch points. The stage is another brand touch point. So what you need to do is make your own brand action wheel and start filling out which brand spokes you utilize. And I did a generic one for you to look at here. But you might have other brand spokes. There's no incorrect brand spokes. If you can get clients through your own brand spoke, could be an advertisement on the back of a park bench. It doesn't matter. I just want you to list every single brand spoke and brand touch point you have. Now, the point of showing this in the form of a wheel, really importantly, and this is where 98% of businesses get it wrong, we tend to, first of all, not have our own brand action wheel, but in business, we kind of know, well, we need a website. Does anyone know anyone that does a website? Check, we got a website. And they just put a check. We need social media. Do you know anyone that can do social media for us? Okay, we got some social media, check. Oh, we need some videos. Anyone know anyone that can do videos? Check. And businesses tend to just go through these really important opportunities to get customer attention by just saying, check, we got it. And what I'm here to share with you is we cannot just rest with a check. Every brand touch point is your opportunity to literally steal the show. Remember the quote that you first wrote down, there are masses of people just waiting to do business with you when they're so inspired. These are the places we must inspire people. We must grab their attention in some way or form. Just look at your inbox of your email. How many emails do you just ignore because they're boring you? How many businesses, physical stores, do you walk past because they didn't grab your attention, or you even walk in and then walk out again? How many websites do you go to that you're like, this is awful, and you leave? Or videos you watch that just don't do it for you? There is so much branding out there that literally is basically telling us to go away as opposed to inspire. It's doing the very opposite. So let's get to the point I was actually making. The vital distinction between branding and brand DNA is we've got to remember the hub of the wheel. The hub is the heart of your business. And that's where we place our brand DNA. Brand DNA is about our core values, our attitude, the personality of our brand. You know, people, you've heard people in your life tell you things like using the word love with a brand that they really like. I've heard people say, oh, I love my Mini Cooper, or I love my Louis Vuittons. And they use the word love with regard to a brand, a non-living or breathing thing. So that's the standard we have to hold ourselves to. If we're going to go about creating a brand, that's why I say let's create a kick-ass brand. The result must be that our customers don't just like it, they love it, because we've inspired them, because we've made them feel it was designed just for them, that we've done something, we've acted in such a way that they're like, this is great, I'm in. Even though I know there's other choices, I'm in with your brand. So we must get really clear about your brand DNA. Saying check, got it, isn't good enough. We have to steal the show. And the great thing about once we get clear about your brand DNA, which also includes your brand story, your brand promise, it includes a number of things that are vital. Once we know those things, we're in a much better position to know what we might need to do at our brand touch points to inspire people, instead of just have them like, whatever. Oh, you're one of those companies. I know lots of companies like you. I hate hearing that. The more I focus on my brand, the less I hear it. And I want the same for you. So I also told you that up to 18 lucky entrepreneurs, business owners, people in sales and marketing, independent professionals have an opportunity to join my 6-week live, keyword live workshop starting in February, the beginning of February in 2020. Before we go any further into it, I'm going to share more about it in a bit. Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention at the end of today's presentation, there is a gift for you for coming and joining us today. Please don't, I've already overlooked it at the beginning, but at the end of the presentation, please remind me.
I will, I'm sorry.
It's okay. But we have a gift for you that I think you're going to appreciate. So anyway, back to sharing about the opportunity we have for you today. This is a different type of workshop. A lot of workshops people have are based on videos, and then you watch the videos and you do some work and then you watch another video. This is live. I will be with you every step of the way, 2 classes a week for 6 weeks. It gives you time to focus on what you've learned, apply what you've learned, do your assignments. Now, included in this workshop, we have what we call mastermind discussions. So not only will you get direction directly from me, we'll be able to test out some of the work you do, some of your messaging, your brand story, your brand promise with each other, from people who aren't emotionally connected to your business. They're not inside of your goldfish bowl of your business. And we can find out in real time whether our messaging is really connecting on an emotional level. That's what we need to be able to test, rather than just working on our own and trying to do it based on a video. We need interaction. Another thing that most workshops don't have, we call it content sprints. In real time, live, you'll be working on your content. You'll be working on your brand story, your brand promise, your brand messaging. You'll be working on solutions to your own brand touch points. And we'll be working on that together so that you're actually getting your assignments completed in real time. And if you get stuck, you can ask questions so that you're constantly moving forward. That's the value of having live direction for a whole 6 weeks and more. So we'll get to more of that later, but I just want you to know a key important steps for how we're going to help you get your kick-ass brand differently than other people have been able to get theirs. So one of the things I'm talking about when we look at that brand action wheel, this is what tends to happen often in business. We start a company, we're so excited, or we're in business and we hear about some other company that's doing really well, and we start kind of, instead of focusing on where we're going, we start looking over our shoulder at what they're doing. And we start, oh, that's a clever idea. We should try that. And we start emulating other businesses in our industry, in our business, same business. That is the equivalent of bolting on camouflage. I've seen companies spend time, money, resources, literally making themselves invisible. I once did a presentation in Los Angeles. It was to 1,500 people. And at the end of it, a lady called Nancy came running toward me, literally bawling her eyes out. And I tend to make a few jokes when I'm on stage, and I was like, what did I say? Have I offended her? And the reason she was crying her eyes out, she had just spent $30,000 on a website, on videos, on social media, on brochures, on a logo, even with pens. It was all in this gray, corporate, bland, nondescript, easily forgettable look. And she'd been, in a sense, duped. She knew it didn't represent her. She knew it wasn't going to attract the clients she wanted while she was in my presentation. So she realized during that 60-minute presentation that she'd blown $30,000 on junk. So if you are in the process of thinking about a new website or thinking about doing some videos, hiring a video company, doing a social media program, doing a marketing program, I urge you to not do it, but to focus on your brand DNA first. You will do such a better job of all of that, all of your brand touch points when you're clear about your brand DNA. So we must avoid camouflage at all costs, unless you're wearing it for fun when you go out. But don't camouflage your business. Otherwise, you will not be discovered. And I'm going to tell you my story about that because it's very relevant to the class here. So back in my last company, Propaganda, the company that did all the props and displays for retailers, while we were getting started, we would call and get hold of buyers and they would say, sounds interesting. Would you create a proposal for us and FedEx it to us? Well, we were brand new in business and we didn't have much money at all. And it was back in those days, it was $25 to overnight a proposal. So we're like, a stamp in those days was only 25 cents. It was literally, what, 100 times more money? Is that right? Yes, 100 times more money. So we would go and create a nice, beautiful proposal. We'd go to Kinko's and have it Xeroxed, color Xeroxed. Then I'd go and line up at FedEx and they would pick up an envelope just like this one and put my proposal into the envelope and off it goes. I knew it was arriving tomorrow. I'm all excited. I'm hoping to get a deal. And then I call up, and if I'm lucky enough to speak to the buyer again, they're like, well, no, I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm busy. And then you call back a week later, no, or you don't even get to speak to them. And I was like getting really frustrated. I keep on spending $25 a pop, sending my proposals out, and I'm not getting the traction. I feel invisible. So one day we happened to go to Chicago and we went to Sears and we got to the desk of the girl I'd sent a proposal 3 weeks earlier. And what we discovered, to our shock, was next to her desk, a pile of FedEx envelopes from the floor this tall. And I'm looking at the pile, all envelopes, just like the one you see on the screen, identical. I didn't know which one was mine, neither did she. So we searched and searched and we finally found it. Luckily we had one with us, so we gave her the one we had. But it gave me a really important nudge because I realized, wait, we're in the business of differentiation. We're in the business of helping create brands. And I've just gone and spent money to become invisible. So when we got home, I phoned FedEx and I said, how much would you charge us if we use our own envelopes? And they said, we'll charge you an extra $5. So I'm like, you know what? I'm already spending 25, might as well spend 30. And so here's what we did. We created our own Propaganda FedEx envelope. Now, immediately you see it doesn't look like a FedEx envelope, but more importantly, other than the image of that's me on the right, back when I was probably about 40 pounds lighter, my ex-business partner, and we had these goofy hello and thank yous. And more importantly, on the left, there are some really absolutely stupid and ridiculous important rules. And I'm not going to read all of them to you, but one of them says, get your arm and wipe the contents off your desk. Another says, hey, before you open this, get yourself into a meditated space of zen and happiness. Go and make yourself a nice cup of tea. If you're American, make a cup of coffee. If you have a sweet tooth, put some sugar in. If you're on a diet, put some sweet and low in, even though it tastes crap. We put the most ridiculous things on our list, including when you open it and start reading the proposal, you start shouting, yes, yes, yes. And you announce to the whole office, this is brilliant. And then you put your feet up, lean back, sign the dotted line, and then take the rest of the day off. We literally printed that on every single FedEx envelope we sent. And you know what happened? We went from being invisible to $5 more, our envelope never made it ever again to that pile. It got opened straight away. Not only did it get opened, our buyers would walk around and say, look at this amazing envelope. They loved it. Well, the first time I sent it, I was nervous, but the point of me sharing this, times have changed. You probably don't even send proposals using an envelope, if you in fact send proposals. It's not about that. It's the point is, we need to look at every single brand touch point and ask ourselves, what result do I want? What result do you want? Because if you're just checking the box, you might not be thinking about the result you really want. The result we wanted our damn proposals signed and paid for. That's what we got. So we went around our brand action wheel and we made sure we applied similar thinking to every major brand touch point we had, including our showroom, including our trade show booths, including our website, you name it, we did it. So this is what we must do, because if you've ever felt that, remember that pile I was talking about, that pile of FedEx envelopes? If you feel that your business is hidden in that pile, then this is a huge opportunity, because most businesses feel that they're in obscurity and they suffer from the very fact of being in obscurity when there are ways that we can get ourselves into the spotlight. Most people think it is going to cost millions. We're going to have to spend tons of money on TV advertising and get on the Super Bowl. No, you don't. We have to apply your brand smartly by understanding your brand DNA. And that's what I'm here to help you do. So before I go any further, Stormy, do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you. So, I'm wondering about the people that are watching this webinar that are thinking that, this sounds great, but this may be too big for me. This brand DNA, I get it for the Coca-Colas of the world and the Nikes of the world, but guess what? I'm a solopreneur, or I've got 3 employees or 5 employees, and I have my business in Middletown, America, or I'm lost in the sea. I live in Las Vegas and my business is lost in Las Vegas. How would brand DNA help that person who's wondering, how is this going to change the presentations that I make every day? Or how will I be able to make changes to my website? How will this type of training or this type of knowledge, how would it help me? And when I go through this, I don't have a big budget. I don't have the budget to implement what I've learned. What's my, should I have expectations in regards to getting a return on my investment and this taking my brand to the next level? Can you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm actually going to go back a stage. Remember at the beginning of the presentation when we were sharing about our favorite brands?
Yes.
I shared a story about Branston. Now, for everybody watching, I don't even think I've told you this, Laura. It was Stormy's birthday recently, and because I'd shared on stage in front of Stormy that story about Branston, I gave him a jar of Branston pickle, Branston relish, for his birthday. And I was on the phone with Stormy yesterday, and I said, Stormy, what did you think of the Branston? And he said, I haven't tried it yet. And I'm like, why? It's fantastic. And you know what you said, Stormy? You said, I'm scared. And so now I'm saying this to pull your leg a little bit, but I'm also saying it because that is a very human fear. Us humans are more afraid than we let on. We're afraid of trying things that we don't feel comfortable with. We're afraid of trying things that are different. And so in business, where we know we're the right answer, we know we've got the right product or we've got the right service, why aren't they choosing us? And often it's because people aren't comfortable. They haven't been inspired yet. So this absolutely works for small business, because I started my business from a suitcase, which grew into a little garage, which then became the go-to company in the whole of the United States for visual branding. So by following these steps, by looking at the brand touch points that are most important in your business, one of the things I want you to do as you go through this exercise and you write down the brand touch points you're using, put some scores for yourself. Are you zoning people out? Where do you think you might actually be boring people? Where do you think you're doing a mediocre job? Or where do you think, oh, I'm doing it just like everybody else. There's nothing that really makes my website or my marketing materials or my social media really that much different than anyone else's. So that's basically what we're focusing on, how to communicate who you really are, what you are really about, in a way that matches the very customers that you most want to connect with. So we, in a sense, we're like building a seesaw. That we have to be really clear about who they are. And I know, I mean, your business, Stormy, I know you started it within just a few years ago. You started from nothing and you built it. So it's about knowing how to, one of the things you really focus on is customer personas. And so
Right.
we cover some of that in this program too. And that's why Storm is involved, because Stormy has a great process on really understanding your customer. And what we have to understand is I focus on psychographics. What are your customers' frustrations and aspirations? We're not just focusing on selling your product. In fact, to answer your question, Stormy, when anyone works with me, any audience, I have people literally take their product or service, put it into an invisible bubble right in front of their face, and then let that bubble float off. And I'm looking at the camera carefully. It floats to about here, not gone, not out of our periphery, just to the edge, because building a brand isn't about your products or services. Products and services come and go. But what makes a long-term relationship is a brand that people trust, so that
Right.
they don't say what you said, because all I've done is say, hey, this is great. You haven't experienced the branding of Branston, which is probably why you said, I'm scared, because is it going to taste awful? Am I going to throw up? Is it going to be too hot or what? So it's very important that we know who our customer is and we know what we're made of, and we don't get too focused in the brand process on products or services yet. Then we can sell a whole boatload more. So does that answer your question, Stormy?
Yeah,
To
it
a
does.
degree?
So it looks like in your training, tell me if I'm correct, looking at the spokes of their touch points, you're really going back to the core of those spokes, working in the core, which is the brand DNA. And once that's there, your your spokes, just each one of your spokes becomes that much more effective. So I would imagine if each spoke increases in efficiency by 5 or 10%, that's significant. If you have 10 spokes on a wheel, you're 100% better than where you were.
You know, I found that a lot of times when people get really focused on selling a product, they're so focused on trying to sell the product, they lose sight of what people actually really need.
Wow.
In this country, let me just go on a tangent. I don't have a slide for this, but it wasn't that long ago in Russia. If you needed bread, the only way to get bread was to go get in a bread line. And you literally would stand in line for hours and hours and hours. You finally get to the front of the line and you get your bread. End of story. That's the only way you could get it. Here in the Western world, we can get bread anywhere. It's a given. As long as you've got some money, you can get bread. Supermarkets, artisan stores, bakeries. So it becomes no longer about the product or service. People buy experiences. That's what people buy. And if you're watching, I want you to write that down. People buy experiences. So part of the experience is the brand story. We need a brand story that is really, really simple, that resonates with your audience, because people like buying from people they feel they have affinity with, right? So when they learn, if they have when people, a very important part of my story actually is that I went down to my last $20 and went and spent it all in a bar because I didn't know what else to do, and then found the oomph to say, I'm not quitting no matter what. That happens to resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs. So people feel a connection to me to listen to what I have to say more than if they didn't know that story. If I just say, here's how you create a brand. First, we have to build rapport with our customers. That's what all of these brand spokes are for. So when we focus on a brand promise is also really important. I'll get to mine shortly, but we must be able to communicate things that people need to feel safe and inspired. And that's what this program is about. It's really mostly about communication. I've worked at, there's an example I'm about to give coming up where the only thing we changed was communication before they spent any money with any of the rebranding around the brand action wheel. So I'm going to continue on, but please, I'm going to pause in a bit to see if there are any more questions. So yes, my next example. So I'm just going to stay on this brand action wheel for a second. I want you focusing on your business. I want you doing what I just said and thinking about what you're doing at your brand touch points. Where are you frustrated? And if you are having really good results with one of your brand touch points or more, then give yourself a 10. But I want you looking at where could you do better, and where do you think you're doing a bad job and maybe even turning customers away? Because I want you to have a real big clue on where you need to apply what goes into your brand DNA to get much better results from your brand touch points. And here, I'll give you another example of a company I worked with who were based in Boulder, Colorado. We've all heard of clothing that can wick moisture for sportswear and what have you. This company that used to be called Kokona when I first worked with them, they have a finish that goes on clothing that literally vaporizes moisture. It works better than any man-made product. And when you wear more than one layer, it actually works exponentially, and it's made from a coconut fiber. So they, in their wisdom, marketed their company using coconuts. They called themselves Kokona, and actually their sales process kind of attempted to explain the coconut fiber process to customers. I often joke about this as being my saddest brand story ever. I've shared this story a few times. I was living in Hawaii at the time. When I flew in, I walked in the door and I'm like, folks, I live in Hawaii, and when I see coconuts, I'm thinking pina coladas and I'm thinking suntan lotion. You're in Boulder, Colorado, in kind of the sportswear type industry at the time. What are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. And they were doing 8 million a year in sales. Now, I know that's a lot higher than a lot of companies like the ones you just talked about, Stormy, but it's the same thing because I see mistakes all the time. I constantly see companies that are going ass backwards about their branding and just checking the list and wondering why they're not getting traction. It happens with many, many small companies. So we can change things quickly. And that's why we're doing a 6-week program so that you can apply things as you go. So one of Kokona's major brand touch points was the trade show, their trade show booth. So I asked them to show me, as we got clearer about their brand DNA, what do you do at the trade show? And they said, well, we show swatches. I'm like, you show fabric swatches, but you don't sell fabric. And they actually said, well, that's what everyone does. I was like, stop. And I happened to have noticed that the room we were in had these double doors that went outside, and outside there was a big trash receptacle. So I told them to go and get all the stuff they used in their trade show booth. They went and got the table, the chairs, the fabric swatches, and the things that they used. And I went and dragged the receptacle in from outside, opened it, and I just started throwing everything into the trash, including the table that they used. And at one point, the sales manager, he actually said almost in a child's voice, like, what are we going to do? And I said, look, I don't know. But what you're not going to do is what's making you invisible. We will come up with a solution. So you know what they did? You know in those movies when they're dealing with some deadly virus and they put their hands into these rubber gloves in an acrylic box and they work with the virus like that? They created an acrylic box where you could put your hand in, and it was a ski glove. And at the trade show, they had people, they would spray their hand with water. They would put their hand into the glove, and in literally seconds, they'd pull their hand out and like, it's dry. Oh my God, it's dry. They had a line down the aisle at the trade show. We agreed that they would do that kind of show on the half hour. You couldn't just walk in and do it. So they would get a line, and everyone's talking about, oh my God, that amazing Kokona company who were drying our hands. So long story short, after they worked with me, they also changed their name to 37.5. That is the optimal temperature that the human body should be for highest performance. And instead of trying to explain how a coconut worked, they started speaking in terms of performance. Cycle longer, hike longer, ski longer, do what you love longer, and perform better with our finish on the clothing. The reason I call it the saddest branding story ever is because they closed that year out at $64 million. And people say, why is that sad? And I say, well, I only got my fee. I didn't get a cut. So now I can't guarantee everybody gets results like that, and nor would I try. The point is, when we inspire our customers, instead of making them think, boring them, who cares about coconuts when they want to go cycling? They care about performance. They care about being comfortable. They care about enjoying what they're doing. So let's sell them that. That's what we're talking about. So let's go a little bit further into the Kick-Ass, how to create a Kick-Ass brand workshop. So what you will get live with me, you'll get your brand story. You'll get your brand promise. You'll get your brand communication and messaging. We will together work out various brand touchpoint solutions so that you're no longer telling the wrong story or boring people or zoning them out or actually turning them away. We will come up with brand touchpoint solutions. We'll test them using our mastermind discussions. We'll create them during content sprints. And like I mentioned, live direction from me. So just like the FedEx envelope I showed you earlier, here's what I'm asking you to do now. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to start meditating a little bit and imagining your business, your life. Imagine how you would feel if you had a line of customers demanding to do business with you. If you had customers saying they love your brand and love doing business with it. How about if you get customers from your marketing? How about you get traction and shares, positive comments, and customers from your social media? What would it mean to you if you sold out of your inventory or had your appointment book filled? What about customers contacting you as referrals from friends who just said you must do business with XYZ brand, your brand? What if you could even out that boom and bust flow of business that often happens, especially to smaller businesses? These are the things we're focusing on in the How to Create a Kick-Ass Brand workshop. So I had to put this image in because so often I've seen programs where they put you into a process. Literally, remember when my granny used to have one of these on her kitchen counter? She would grind the meat and it would actually go into a sausage casing and she would make sausages. And I thought it was fascinating. But in business, we don't want to be pushed through a process and just come out as another silly sausage, just the same as every other silly sausage that goes through this process. So I put this in here because there are many, many industries where there are programs, people buy the program, and they're just being shown how to conform to a certain set of behaviors. That is the absolute opposite of what this program is about. So my brand promise to you is that no brand will ever come out the same as another brand going through my system with my direction. Every brand will always be different. Your brand will be different, differentiated from all others. And that's my promise to you. So another thing I notice sometimes from people is, oh, I get it, but can I do it? And I'm here to tell you, you can do this. So you might worry that you don't know enough about branding, you don't know enough about emotional connection. Actually, you do, and I'm going to help polish your information. A lot of us, we don't know what we don't know, so I'm going to be helping educate you what you really need to know about a brand, because like I said, 98% of businesses get it wrong, so don't feel bad if you don't know. I spent the last 30 years of my life becoming a true expert in this field. So you might have doubts about your ideas, which is perfectly normal. When I first sent that FedEx envelope out, I was nervous. I hope they like it. I hope they're not offended, but they loved it. So we're going to have some growing pains, that's normal. If you worry you're not going to be able to communicate your brand or get customer attention, or fears that people won't even care about your brand, that's all normal too, and we'll work through that. The most important thing at this point is I just want you to be willing to take the step, willing to dare yourself to do things differently, because that's what I'll be asking you to do, is do things differently. Because as Einstein himself says, the insanity is about people who do the same thing over and over, expecting different results. If you want different results, we're going to make some changes, and I'll literally hold your hand through the process. So that's what we're doing with this program. Any questions, Stormy? I can't hear you.
I needed to unmute myself.
Okay, I'm going to continue.
Okay, no, that was great. It was very, very clear to me. It's funny, I was licking someone else, their grandmother had one of those meat grinders. But, you know, one of the things that you said that's so important, being in marketing, that's just absolutely key, is no business is going to come out looking like another.
In fact, that's the very antithesis of creating a successful brand, isn't it? When so many players in an industry behave just the same as one another. And I've often joked about this, how many times, how often groups of people emulate one another is just mind-blowing. So we have to, every step of the way, we have to do it our way, not the done way. And this is the exciting thing about having a brand. It frees us to be ourselves. And that really, at the end of the day, behind all of this, is my mission in life, is to help people truly be their best selves. Your business to be itself instead of feeling lost in a crowd. That's what we're focusing on. So this workshop will guide you to define your own brand DNA, which includes your brand story, your brand promise, your brand values. As I mentioned before, we pretend a brand is a person, and all brands have actually a personality. We'll work out what your brand personality is, and that helps make it very different than everybody else's. People are drawn to the personalities that they relate to. That's why we're going to be really clear about who your customers are. And all people have attitudes just as well as your brand does. We'll be seeing what your brand attitude is. These are all factors that we use to help differentiate you more and more realistically and more authentically. So, and again, people tend to have points of view. Your brand is no different. So we'll be clear about your brand point of view, your attitude, your beliefs. Around that, we'll help you build community. Really important and really actually so doable in today's world with the internet, with social media. We need to not just post stuff, we need to build community. We'll be taking the steps to do that with you. This will help you move out of obscurity and into the spotlight of your market. Now, oftentimes branding and brand DNA, the number of times I talk with website companies, social media companies, marketing companies like yours, Stormy, video companies, PR companies, and once they've seen me on stage or read my book, they're like, oh my God, my customers, my clients need you. Because we can't just go to these organizations and say, would you just sell my stuff and do a great job? All these companies that we work with, they need our pre-marketing message. Our pre-marketing message is all the things that go into your brand DNA. That gives all the people you work with something to go with, to do their job way better for you. So pre-marketing is very, very valuable for your marketing and branding. Again, we're going to really focus on who your customer really is so that you are very clear, and we make sure that what you're doing does that yin and yang seesaw connection between you and the customers you want. We don't turn anyone away, but we need to know who your core customer is, the ones that make you most happy, the ones that love doing business with you. Let's attract them. So it's about getting crystal clear about what truly differentiates you from everybody else. And we'll also be showing you the best, you'll define it as we go, the best brand strategy for your business, not for the business next door, the brand strategy for you. So now that we have some extras, you're going to get, actually Laura here is an amazing accountability coach. The program includes up to 10 hours of accountability coaching as you go along so that you get results. We're going to have no more than 18 students. So if it sells out, we won't suddenly be like, oh, guess what? It's 50. No, it's 18 no matter what. It's a 6-week program, but I'm adding 4 extra weeks so that we can get together if you want to, or when you want to continue discussion, to continue brainstorming and checking in on, I've been trying this is what's happened, and fine-tuning things. We'll often fine-tune things. There's also 4 bonus sessions. These are additional sessions. One of them is, I'm not going to go through all 4, but one of them, a good friend of mine, is the actual founder of the North Face, the multi-billion-dollar iconic brand, the North Face. His name is Hap Klopp. Hap started the North Face by purchasing 2 unheard of stores and created the North Face. Hap will be sharing things that we need to consider, not how we create a multi-billion-dollar brand. There's a very small number of people who would do a program like this for a multi-billion-dollar brand. He started from a tiny start, and his customers were so addicted to his brand. He'll be showing you the steps that the North Face took to stand out and grab customers from the get-go, which really also speaks to the question you asked earlier, Stormy. There were 3 other experts, which is a surprise coming up. We're also going to, here's what's happening in business when we're hidden in that pile, mine was FedEx envelopes, you're hidden in a pile in a different way. We're leaving money on the table. I was leaving money on the table just using FedEx without my envelope, or all the other things that we did that got us out there and got us into the spotlight, and you're leaving money on the table. So this program is going to help you move past leaving all this money behind, attracting the money from the customers who now are excited to do business with you. You'll also have 12 months of access to the video, a video each session, and so you'll have 12 months to go and review all the work. You'll have email and Facebook support, and you have the whole 12 months. If you want to redo the class when we redo it, you can join in for free. So we're giving you as much value as we possibly can for this. It's a really exciting program. Like I said, I can't emphasize enough, I'm with you live the whole way through. So now we're up to how much does it cost? So let me just share with you, in my business, my clients pay me $15,000 for 1 day of workshop. I get paid $20,000 for keynote presentations. I charge $35,000 for a 2-day brand intensive, and my 2-day, and that's plus expenses. My expenses tend to be about $5,000 because of first class travel, hotels, etc. Everything included in that 2-day intensive is included in the program I've shared with you today. This is our beta version. I've never done this program this way exactly. In next year, after this program is done, the actual price will be $12,000 per person. But because it's the first one, that's why I said 18 lucky entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, sales and marketing professionals, or personal brands. The price is $5,500. But for the next 2 weeks, the early bird special rate is $49.95. So it's if you were a Fortune 500 client, like the ones I work with, who did 6 months retainer with me afterwards, you're in over $65,000 to work with me. You're getting the whole exact same process for $4,995. We're even doing a three monthly payment plan, 3 payments of $1,750. And as I said, you might want to have I didn't say this, but I'm saying now, if you want to have a chat before you make your decision, just go and Laurie, I'm assuming you've been putting up the link to the landing page for this program. There's a button you can press to set up an appointment to chat with me. I normally charge about $2,000 for a consultation, but this is fine. I'm going to chat with you for no charge if you're serious about doing this program. So go to the link, click on the chat conversation button, or just sign up for the program. Remember, there are only 18 seats for this program, and that will be it. Next, we're going to get to the special gift for staying on this webinar all the way through. But before we get to it, anybody, Stormy, do you have any more questions? Or Laura, do you have any questions or thoughts? Was there anything I missed? Is there anything I should have said?
Well, Julie had a great question during the presentation where she wanted to know specifically about the when the workshop comes around, is this the kind of thing where you can build on top of what you have if you already have some things that you
absolutely Yeah, I was presenting to a client a couple of days ago, and they showed me what they've already done with their brand. What I showed them was that they've made a good start, but they've got some ways to go. So yes, if you've already started, we'll look at it and we'll review it and we'll determine what is. I normally look at a business not from the point of view about what's wrong, but what's missing. So I will give you my appraisal. By the way, what we didn't mention, and thank you, Julie, for asking that question. All 18 people who do this program will have a one-on-one with me before the program starts. We'll be looking at your vision, your mission, your goals. We'll have some clarity around this, and I'll be able to review what you've got so far and give you some guidance before we even get started. I want everybody on the same page when we start, so that we all get to know each other and go through this journey together. So great question. Thank you, Julie. Any others?
Yeah, I think people are just absorbing it. I think what people really want to know is what is that special gift?
Okay, so the special gift is go to my website, davidtyreman.com, type in /bonus, and everybody gets a free copy of this book, world famous, How to Create a Kick-Ass Brand by me. So that's your gift. This retails, the paperback retails for $25. That's my gift. It's the electronic version, but that's my gift for you today. So thank you so much for showing up today. Thanks so much for joining in, sharing your favorite brands. But most importantly, I really want you to think about crushing it in 2020. So you can move yourself out of obscurity into the spotlight, get traction with customers, and grow your business. So let's do it. Sign up, and I'll speak to you really soon. I want to thank you, Laura. I want to thank you, Stormy. I really appreciate doing this with you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody. And I'll have a link to the event website if you haven't grabbed it out of the chat. I'll have that shared on David's Facebook page as well as on his website, davidtyreman.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. See you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.